Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's such a delight to speak to you this morning. As you know, I'm of Indian origin and we have a very beautiful festival of Lord Ganesha. So I have been, really getting ready for that and making various things to have a very good experience. And I want to take you to another continent from India here, and that is Africa. My guest today is MaryAnne Mwaura. She is an executive coach and a leading public affairs professional with around 20 years experience in the financial services industry. And her passion for empowering women has led her to start Activate Women in Leadership Africa, or VILA for short. And it is really my pleasure to welcome you here, MaryAnne. I'd love to get to know more about you, your podcast around Gems and Nuggets, and also how you're helping leaders with their unique journeys, both as a coach, a design your life coach, etc. Right? So super welcome to you. How are you today, MaryAnne?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and for all the people who are joining us today. Thank you so much, Shivangi, for inviting me for this phenomenal founders conversation. I'm really excited and really happy to be here. And so, as and happy, I don't know what feast day you call it, and all the best with it. I heard you earlier talking about the food and the festival, so I'm sure you really enjoy your weekend. Yes. But back to Activatewila, and thank you for that warm introduction. It actually was an inspiration that came about out of a personal need first, and also from my coaching clients. So a personal need was my husband was relocating to Johannesburg, South Africa, and we decided as a family that we would move together. And for me, I realized the biggest concern I had was the fear of the unknown. I'm born, bred Kenyan, and once I had traveled to South Africa and I loved, going there as a tourist, it was easy to go in and out. But now I was going to live there as an expatriate, my first experience in my 40s. And I thought to myself, my biggest fear is the networks. Will I be able to quickly acclimatize into that area? And, my coach, because even as a coach, we do go see our own coaches, asked me, what would you do about that? How do you fix that? And I said, actually, even here in Nairobi, I don't know everyone. So why don't I meet up with like-minded people who I've met maybe at a function and we've said we'll meet up, but never did anything about it. And so I sent invites out. And I thought, let me try 15 women, and hopefully, even if I get 8, I'll be happy. And guess what? All 15 arrived, and we had such an awesome time. And the first question they asked me is, what's the agenda? And I said, no agenda. And you could tell that senior women, these are women who typically are like me and you, who are always, meeting to give our ideas, but we've never had time just to breathe and take it all in, and also hear from other people and share. And so that safe space was what was missing. And in addition, my existing coaching clients were like, MaryAnne, you have such a great network. How can we plug into it? And so I said, okay, those women I had invited, and you, my coaching clients, how can I bring you all together? And so because I knew I was now moving to Johannesburg last year in February, I said, okay, if the numbers were coming to 50, let's meet up. No agenda, let's just try to mix and match. And my Shivangi, 86 women later.
Oh, wow.
Came in, they shared, again, no agenda, but this time I thought, let me try the wheel of life. And we had an awesome time together. And they then inspired me to say, if these 86 women can just appear on one day without any effort of marketing or anything else, what more can be done? And that's how Activate Women in Leadership Africa actually began.
Fantastic. I mean, what an inspiring story, right? And you reminded me of the early days of Thrive. Thrive is almost 4 years old now. And it was really that, right? Really coming up with an idea and going to friends and friends of friends and saying, is that something that you would like to do? Would you like to mentor a younger woman? And then actually working with some of my friends in that case, to bring just women together. There was no website, nothing. And I, did that in Zurich to begin with. And then in Mumbai, by also in record time, and just realizing that there is this need that we all have, right, to interact with each other in a way that we can be open, that we can be vulnerable, that we can actually share our challenges and also be inspired by, by the stories. I'm just wondering, what is your greatest story? And maybe, a positive story that you have shared, but what is your greatest challenge story? And I'm very curious to know, how did you recover from it? And more importantly, I think for our listeners and viewers, what did you learn from that experience, MaryAnne?
Shivangi, I really like that question. You know why? Because many times we are always talking about successes, and so when it comes to failure questions, we only ask that question typically in interviews. And when, like when you're applying for a job, to be specific. And so I really had to think about this one because I thought, really? And I had two, but I want to share one major one. So I started my career in sales. And I will say this, Shivangi, I was a great salesperson. I enjoyed sales. I thrived doing sales. And it was just success after success after success. And I just knew a career cannot be built on success after they just had to be something. And I thought, you know what, I'm comfortable. I needed to challenge myself. And then one global financial institution came out and said, we like what you're doing, but we would like to offer you a job in service. And I had never done service. In fact, I actually looked down a little bit on service because sales was more the higher job. But it was new territory, and I liked new territory. And they said, come in and see. But the thing for me was I was working in a local bank, and I was going to work for a global institution. And that was interesting because it was a time when digitization was coming into the fore, and so basically it was the big project I was given was to extend the banking hours. Nowadays, with online banking, you're like, what? But
I know, the reality is dramatic.
Exactly. But at that time, banks used to shut down at 2 or 3 p.m. In fact, the current bank, we were doing 3 p.m. and I was being challenged to push it to 8 o'clock. Now it's even a joke to hear that. Yeah. And so then I, because of my nature, I wanted to get things started. I, got all the people into one room and I said, this is what we have been asked to do and we have to do it. And Shivangi, the people in the room told me, excuse me, you're a young girl. What do you know about banking? In fact, we hear you've come from this small bank. How are you going to be able to get this going? In our lives, we've been in the bank for 30, 40 years. You have nothing to teach us. And they walked out of the room.
Wow.
Imagine, this is your first meeting. You've come into, you even start doubting yourself. What have I done? Should I have just stayed in my sales job that I was thriving in instead of coming to complicate myself in this? But there were so many good lessons. And the lesson number one was, it was good that the project had the CEO as the sponsor. So I went to the CEO and he asked me, had you spent time with the team? Have you gained their trust? Have you checked to see what fears they may have? Because now think about it, you're disrupting and changing what they've known to do all their lives, and you're coming to ask them to do other things. And Shivangi, I walked into the biggest critic, and I walked into his office, and guess what? It was the first time someone used to be on the top floor, had come into his office. I came with a cake, and guess what? The rest is history. He asked me to join their team meeting. He introduced me to all the team members, and he said, if this lady asks us of anything, this must be done. So fast forward from in the whole scheme of things, that lesson alone taught me how to engage with all my stakeholders, even till now. Even Shivangi, when I come to meet up with you, what is thrived with mentoring, what has been working for you, what hasn't. So that by the time we're coming to meet up, we're coming from a common space, a common union. And even these skills has even helped me with coaching. I always have pre-sessions before we come into coaching. Sometimes it's not a coaching conversation. Sometimes it's a mentoring conversation. Sometimes it's even going to see a certified therapist. So that lesson for me was important for me to fail. It was important for me to become humble. It was important for me to say, take some time back and engage with your stakeholders. So really, I was happy to have had it. It wasn't an easy one. I'm now reflecting back at it. It wasn't an easy one. And I just thought, I want to make my first 100 days successful in addition. But right after that, the rest is history. Thanks.
Thank you. And thanks for sharing that story. I think there are just so many learnings, right? So many threads. I think as women, one of the key challenges that we have, and I keep encountering this, during, of course, with Thrive as an organization and exposure to not just stories of individuals, but the patterns that are emerging, right? And it does seem that there is a lot of second guessing that we do, a lot of, really stepping back rather than stepping in the front, and actually being really afraid of failing, right? That seems to be such a driver. Even this morning, I've been speaking to somebody and they've been trying to, make their social media more attractive and want to, go and create more posts, and there was just so much thoughts around, would that sound like I'm bragging about myself? Is there value in this? Is there value in that? And I know, and I've gone through that same journey myself. I'm very active on LinkedIn currently. And one of the biggest switches that I needed to make was to not start editing and evaluating everything that I'm posting out and think about thousands of people and how they might react. I always try and work with one person and say, okay, like you were speaking about this biggest critique of yours, how are you going to relate to this person? And I think even in mentoring, and I'd like to know what you do in Activatewila. So one of the things that you do is bring women together, and you said that it might be like you do a coaching exercise like the Wheel of Life, or you don't have an agenda and you're just connecting women with each other. But what is the most exciting thing that you are working on as you develop? And I know that an organization like yours, which started with bringing women together and meeting in person, is probably quite impacted by COVID, right? How are you pivoting in these times?
That's a very interesting point you bring about, because as far as I'm concerned, when we had that first event, it was my farewell, it was regroup, reprioritize, and renew yourself in 2020. It was like my gift to all my coaching clients. And I was going to go to South Africa and I was going to close. There was no formality then. And so then COVID happened. And then I couldn't move to South Africa because, of course, there was the lockdown. And that happened for 6 months. And then slowly, the guests who had come for the event were like, "Hi, MaryAnne, I'm really going through this. Why can't you try to convene us into a session?" And I was like, it was questioning, because coaching for me was one-on-one, and that event was an event. Now you're asking me to go into the virtual world, which frankly I hadn't done. And so that meant learning how to go onto Zoom and Zoom webinar and go to Meet, which is the best platform, as you're saying, from your friend, getting yourself out there. When I was a coach, it was easy just to get referrals and just be in the background. Even though I am in public affairs, I'm in public affairs from a Citibank perspective, but not from a myself business perspective. And I had to put myself out there. It was really challenging. And so basically, fine. Everything that we started to do was a reaction to the customers. There's a concept that is about the sound of the river. What do your customers want? Stick close to them, and then curate things that they will respond to. And to be fair with you, Shivangi, at the very beginning, the very first event we had 860 people, going in. But yes, novelty. Zoom was a novelty. And
yes, no Zoom fatigue. Yes,
exactly. And then you started seeing the numbers starting to decline. So you have to see what can you do to curate to get people together. And so one of the things that we were talking about this earlier was the podcast, because yes, they wanted to speak to people, but people were at different times and different moments, and you also wanted to spend more time with someone. And so it was easy to go onto Zoom one-on-one and then edit it in, And talking about failure, one of the things, this is the first time I'm live. I do not like to go live onto things, but it's also
wonderful live, MaryAnne. It's difficult to believe that you've never done it.
I liked, because then I'm able to edit, and to your point earlier around being stepping in, I was like, you're always talking about change and embracing different things. Take time to learn, prepare for yourself. But to answer your question around what am I currently working on?
Yes.
So because of the responding to customers' needs, I realized many of the customers, my clients were coming to me, my coaching clients were coming to me because of reinvention. COVID had happened and they were like reevaluating what they were doing with themselves. Sometimes because of what they wanted to do, or sometimes the decision was being made for them. The organization that they were working in was furloughing them or retrenching them. So they had to think, what else could they do? And at the beginning of last year, I had done a program called Design Your Life, which is something that has been designed by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, a Stanford program. And I decided to certify it. I'm actually the second in all of Africa. And I met up with a lady called Maya Curtis, and who is based in the US. Actually, she's in the Silicon Valley. She has a practice called New Beginnings. And now we are partnering to do our own Activate New Beginnings Design Your Life program. Why? We have actually tailor-made it for the African market, and more importantly, for women. Because we realize for women, we really want that even as you do the Design Your Life, you want to hear what other women are doing, borrowing some insights for them, and also getting that safe space to also explore with them. Typically, Design Your Life is you go on your own as a designer and sit in your own room and do your own thing. But now what we're doing is curating a space that, yes, in addition to learning the material, you can now meet like-minded people and bounce off ideas. I'm borrowing some of the ideas from the first event, but now coming and curating a session. And also women want to meet other women from Africa, someone from Ghana, someone from Nigeria, Uganda, Botswana, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, because you can borrow. And also, now that we've gone virtual, you and I are thinking of partnering for mentoring because you're in Europe, but also women are working there who are based here because now we've gone virtual. You can do anything. So the program is going to be launched in October.
Okay.
And so, in fact, we're really excited, and we'll be sending it out. You can go onto our website. It's listed there, activatewila.com. And Shivangi, for you especially, we will do a 10% discount, and we're calling it promo code Thrive with Activate. So
that's wonderful.
That's come and join us as we do that.
Yeah. Promoting these events, right? Thrive will launch in Johannesburg, Nairobi, and Cape Town in 2022. So those are the 2 countries and the 3 cities. And I'd love to, get well-networked women who want to volunteer. I mean, Thrive is a volunteer-based organization who want to bring a community of women together and create this mentor-mentee relationship, right? Because we have always this relationship. We have a whole idea. We have now catalyzed more than 1,300 such relationships. So it really works, and would love to partner with you and with these women to really bring the magic of women-to-women mentoring to Africa, and starting with South Africa and Kenya. I have a different question because it struck me. You remain in your corporate role at Citibank, and you're coaching, and you have started, Activatewila. How are you doing that? Because a lot of people actually say that, this is a very, difficult thing to do. In fact, so I'm also launching another program called Empower. And there we're speaking about a lot of corporate women wanting to start their own ventures, but really struggling to find the time. And one of the ideas that I'm introducing and speaking a lot about is this idea of a side hustle. So you keep your job and you start something, but you start something in a smaller scale. And depending on, and that's almost like a safety net, which seems to be really important for many women, right? And depending on how this initiative is doing, you probably reduce the amount of time that you are working, that you're employed. And at a particular time, maybe you even let go of your employment, or you keep it, 50% employment and 50%. So I don't know, are you doing all of these activities in addition to 100% job, or how are you splitting that? And how is your employer reacting to that? Because those were also the many questions that I get, saying that employers, and maybe COVID has changed employers, but I think pre-COVID, it was also not desired by a lot us. What is the change you are seeing now?
So I must admit that I have a really good. There seems to be an echo.
Yeah, suddenly something happened, but you're good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I was saying that I'm happy to have a really good employer in Citi. Interestingly enough, one of my mentors is called Chinwe Esimai. She's actually our global head of AML. And why am I bringing her up in this conversation is because she actually has a similar program for women in the US. And so there was already precedent in that regard. But the bank has actually put in in processes, what is called outside business interests. So, they ask you certain questions and, to ensure that there is, this justice in the whole process. So how many hours are you putting into this? What kind of program is it?
No conflict of interest. Yeah.
And those are very important things. No conflict of interest, ethics in all of that. And even as a coach, I have my ethical values that I have to live with. I have been blessed with the fact that I've been generally always been very good at multitasking and also balancing time. And basically starting my day early. It's very interesting. In fact, the other day, my husband was sharing about, how people like Dwayne Johnson wake up at 4 o'clock. I was like, yes, if you are going to have to do this, it means you have to sacrifice some time and put in, time for it. And I'm also very deliberate around marking those times, very clear. And in addition, I do have staff. I've actually employed people in Activates. So in 2 ways. One, I have a fantastic assistant who is able to manage my time. And so people know how to reach out to her. And she can see my calendar and put things in place. And that's one way. And the other way is I actually have associates. I cannot coach all the coaching clients who come to me. So what I've decided to do is I actually have a partner in Europe and I have a partner in the US, because even the times allow us then to reach out to a wider variety of people and times. So I onboard all the clients, but then we have a practice by which we can be able to apportion clients to match them to the appropriate associate. So
do you do this in addition to 100% job, or you have reduced
100% job? I do this
100% job. Okay.
Yeah, 100% job.
That is really interesting, and it is quite. I wouldn't say it's unique, but it is unusual, right? It's unusual.
It is. So you really have to plan your time very well, and I'm very clear around saying the month of this I am not doing so. I do less time with Activate in that sense. So, so like I think, last month I was away on leave and I did not touch anything, because you need to be able to be charged so that you can be present for your clients. But more importantly, my employer is my number one as I speak to you right now. And they're very clear about that. Yes. Thanks.
That's a very interesting model that you are showing that is possible, right? I mean, a lot of the founders that I bring on Phenomenal Founders Conversations, a lot of them have moved away from any kind of employment. So I think that's quite fascinating that you are managing to balance that. And things might be
something. Actually, in Design Your Life, one of the things they say to do is to prototype. Right. Remember, I hadn't planned. I didn't sit down to do a business plan to start Activate. Activate sort of happened on me. So the prototyping is allowing to say, how much can I push the needle without it affecting my health? My health is very important. My family, my work, and my play. Once those pockets have been dealt with, then Activate was able to sieve through. And that's why when I knew I was taking on too many clients, I got associates. So in fact, one of the points is around how do you get partnerships? Even with the program I'm running now, the reason I have a partner is that if, for example, my employer expects me to be somewhere, the program can still run because my partner can pick up the pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you bring a very important point around collaboration, co-founders, associates, and partnerships in various ways, right? And it's not something that we automatically think about, because it seems the prevalent model is a solopreneur, yes. Somebody who's starting their own business, also trying to make a commercial success of the business. And many times there is a lot of burnout. I mean, I don't know if you've been reading about some of these reports that are coming out. On the one hand, because of COVID, there is what they call as the Great Resignation. So a lot of people, and of course women, are very, let's say, they are disappointed, or maybe they don't see anymore that the employment is the right way for them to continue their lives. And COVID has, like you rightly mentioned, made too many people question, right? Because in the busyness of business, we don't question it, we just go on. And COVID put those breaks, and gave people the time to really think about, what do I want out of my life? What are my values? How do I want to take my life further, right? So those are all very, very interesting questions. So thank you for sharing your story and your journey around that. And I'd love to, as I said, keep in touch and see how things are evolving. As a last question from you, can you share a favorite, resource. So it could be a podcast, it could be a book, it could be, a show that you felt was really a great learning experience for you, something that has stayed with you. For some people, it's poetry, so it doesn't matter. Just some sort of asset that you felt was very, instrumental in helping you learn.
Thank you very much. And that question, I ask it on my podcast, so I feel like it's been thrown back at me, and I'm being punished for it, which is good. I don't want to sound trite, but for sure, the Bible is my one resource. And I'll say, from a storybook, my favorite book, the Bible. Why? Because literally any story that I have read that I've loved has always had a background to it. So let me give you 4 examples. One, Cain and Abel, 2 brothers who come and even Jeffrey Archer has written a book on Cain and Abel, but 2 brothers who, it's about what do they sacrifice, what do they offer up? And even us being coaches, what is the best that we offer up? So it's a story that, transcends culture, transcends anything else. I think about the Prince of Egypt, it's a cartoon people know. So it's about Joseph in the Bible with his brothers. But that even with that suffering that he had to endure, in the end, it was important for him to suffer, back to the issue about failure, so that he could learn from those and actually be able to guide the king of Egypt. And one last story is Esther. There's a story of Esther in the Bible who had to use her wisdom. And what I like about the Bible is even the how women are portrayed, typically as very forthright women, people who take a step back, yes, and that's the strength of us women. But when they come and when they speak, it's actually is very weighty and is able to drive the world positively and also negatively. There are some other women in the Bible that are not. So the Bible has so many great stories that have actually lent themselves to modern day literature. And, as a child, because it's also helped me to start learning my love for reading. I can see the many books you have behind you. It's pithy, but it has great stories that, another one I have to think about on my feet is David and Goliath. It's also a business story right now that Malcolm Gladwell has even borrowed from. We learned about it being the small guy in business who can come and beat the big guy, which what we're trying to do right now. But also that the small guy actually is maybe more nimble, more agile to be able to create certain things. You and I were able to meet up quickly because it was just a quick referral, no big processes and bureaucracy in organizations. So we're able to have this in a short period of time. So the Bible for me is the go-to book.
Thank you. This is one of the most unusual answers, and it has reminded me of one of these conversations I had when I was in Salt Lake City in Utah with a speaker who came from, one of these Christian orders, I don't remember which one. And I had this fascinating conversation because, of course, he was a theologist and he had studied all religions. And he was actually drawing parallels between all religions, and really saying how these stories almost reverberate across religions. So that's fascinating. And you've given so many real examples around how the stories that were written in a particular time, how they are relevant even today. And I think today, especially when we are, all sort of trying to hold on to something, right? Because we have this invisible enemy and it's really changed our life, literally from left to right. So we are all trying to hold on and feel grounded. And as a student of Buddhism, I can of course only vouch for that, right? That how do you ground yourself? And we all have our different mechanisms, how to ground ourselves. So thank you very much. This has been a very interesting conversation, MaryAnne. We will definitely be in touch. I wish you all the best with Activatewila, what you're doing next. And we have to think about collaborating and how Activatewila and Thrive can work together in Africa. That would be fantastic.
Fantastic. I really look forward to working with you and I wish you all the best as you come into the African continent. We are warm people, we're welcoming people, and we love to work with people.
Thank you so much. Have a very nice afternoon. Bye for now.
Thank you to the audience. Bye.